Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. So we're going to be having a conversation today that is quite polarizing, but actually very necessary because everybody wants it. If they're not doing it, they want to do it. And it's a topic that people don't talk about. So today I have with me a certified sex specialist who teaches people how to understand their body, have sex more often and better sex, especially to heal their relationships. I have with me Brittany Farrow. It's Farrow, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Brittany Farrow, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh. So we had a great conversation prior to
Right
the
out the gate.
actual recording of this podcast. But tell us more about how you even got into this, because it's not every day that a family counselor or therapist decides to specialize in sex therapy.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I knew I was very interested in sociology and psychology, and then took a class. I went to school right down the street here at UNLV, took a class and was introduced to what couple and family therapy is. And so the quick and short of it is it's about systems. So I don't just work with couples or families. It's looking at how, as an individual, how all these different relationships shape who we are and our interactions. So really just fell in love with that field. Then as I started training, when working with a lot of couples, I realized that there were just specific issues that continued to come up, and I just really didn't feel like I knew enough to help them effectively. And so, there's finances, that's definitely not my specialty, and, parenting issues, and then it was sex. It was coming up quite often, and so I decided I wanted to seek out specialized training. The me side of this is I was recognizing that even in just these intro classes that we have to take, we're in this sex therapy class and everyone else, it seemed to me, was just kind of nodding like, oh yeah. And I'm like, what? I didn't know that, And it was this moment where I realized I went to grad school with 2 under 2. So it was this recognition that I'm a woman. I have been pregnant. I have birthed 2 children, and I don't even know a lot of this about my own body. And that was a very odd feeling, and it really perked this interest that I never thought I would pursue. And I wanted to know more. And so that's when I sought out certification through what's called ASECT, which is the American Association of Sexuality Educators, counselors and therapists. Maybe double check that one.
That's quite an acronym.
Because they have this postgraduate training, and so that's what I sought out to do. Specifically, I sought out training in what's called sensate focus, which we can talk about, but the old school pioneers in the field of sex therapy, Masters and Johnson, they developed and created this modality, and I sought out, her name is Linda Weiner, she's out of St. Louis, and she was trained by them. Mm-hmm. So she was trained directly from Masters and Johnson, and then I sought her out to learn more about sensate, and so here I am.
So here you are. So, so briefly summarize, what did you learn through them, and why was it such a pivotal moment in your career?
I think for me, what I liked about, do you mean specifically sensate focus? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, especially myself, how I show up in therapy is I can be, I can accidentally get a little bit into the existential or the weeds of things, but sensate is a very structured approach. What I also like is it really can help dispel or challenge a lot of these myths that we grow up with because of gender, because of who we are. It's structured. It has multiple uses too. So I can utilize it to work with a lot of different concerns or struggles. But what it does is it's really, if I had to describe it, it's mostly a mindfulness exercise. People kind of crack up when they come to me, but I'm like, this area of it anyway, like this first part of sensate, it's not sexual. And, and they're like, yeah, it is. But it can be sensual, but the whole point is to get reacclimated to who our partner is and notice sensation. Because that is often the key to understanding ourselves and being able to communicate what we need, what we want, and to help understand our partner, which then leads to really happy, healthy sex.
Okay, I love this. We're going to unpack this right now.
Sure.
So now, a healthy relationship
Yeah.
between, a couple,
Yeah.
there is intimacy and there has to be intimacy. It's the way our bodies communicate and we become one flesh with our partner.
Yes.
Why is it that people are so against talking about it when it's actually one of the things that even in the Bible, God commands us to be fruitful and multiply? So it is a natural thing that we do.
Yeah.
We should be doing it, yet people feel that they cannot.
Yeah, and I think so. Here's just my answer. I'm definitely not speaking for the entire sex therapy community, but from what I have discovered working with people, I don't think it's always intentional, right? So, let's say they grow up with a background where, whether it be from their faith or their family, they're told this isn't something you should do, and for good reason, right? Like to prevent pregnancy, to also honor who they are, to prevent hurt. So I think what's happening is there's good intentions behind don't do this. We're told immediately right out the gate, don't do this, don't do this, and therefore it's not really discussed or talked about. Then we find ourselves in a situation where, based on our belief systems, okay, now I'm allowed to do this, and it's, wait a second, it was just always don't. I didn't learn what was good,
Because we were
what's
conditioned.
pleasurable. Absolutely. And then I think too, the reason I also love sex therapy is I'm the type of person, I like to talk about all the things you're not supposed to. And so I think it involves so many different elements of that are often controversial, right? It involves our bodies, it involves our faith, our culture, all of these different things coming into one place, relationship values. So I think that's why is even for those that want to talk about it, we can step on toes really easily. So that would be, from my perspective, I think that's why it's so difficult, I'm a little glass half full person. I think it comes from technically a good place, is we're not really sure how to, without either offending others or saying something we're not, like, quote, supposed to, without that freedom or space or safety to do so, which is, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of what I do, I think good therapy is I want my clients to walk away thinking more about what they said than what I said.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Right? Like, I hope I'm providing information. That's absolutely my job. But I want them to have that space and freedom with someone to say the thing. And then, ooh, wait a second. I don't know if I actually think it like that. Like, or wait, that's not the word I would use. I want them to have that space to do so.
So you
and
want
it's
them to have an
rare.
epiphany.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
really resonate with the information you shared.
Yes, yes. And be able to say it in a way where, they're not, for example, I think why partners have a hard time talking about this with each other is, if you think about it, most people don't want to hurt each other. And so say, they're having sex with their partner and they're like, that was uncomfortable, but we've been doing that for, 4 years. If I say that now, they're going to feel betrayed. They're going to feel that they're not good enough. They're going to feel, and we're often talking about things that involve body parts, and that we have a lot of vulnerability and sensitivity around those things. And so yeah, I think it's good intended, but makes it really, really hard to talk openly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know a lot of married couples struggle with this one thing, whereas one of them wants to have sex and the other one doesn't, maybe because they feel shameful about their body, maybe
Yes.
they don't feel good enough, or maybe they're just on a hormonal level,
Absolutely.
not erotically charged. And there's a lot of doctors out there that say if you're not horny, you're not healthy. But sometimes it could just be, a lot of it is in the mindset. It's their mind.
Absolutely.
How do you help couples through that?
Well, the first thing that I'll ask people, and it's not a setup, but it is just to kind of get a frame of reference for what their expectations are. And I'll ask them, how often do you think you should be having sex? And truly, the answer is not what I'm looking for, because there isn't a number. I've worked with couples where they're having sex 3 times a year. If they're both happy with that number and they are both content and it doesn't symbolize any concern in the relationship, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But often what's happening is there's a difference in expectations and it means something, right? And so it is, at least I haven't found it yet. Like, I have yet to work with a couple where they both have the same level of libido, or they have it'll often be a very similar window of how often they should be having it. But then I will ask them, why? And I think sometimes they're looking at me like, well, you tell me how often we should be having sex. I don't have that answer, because we have busy lives. And then we could get into the whole technical. There's what's called spontaneous arousal, and there's called what's responsive arousal.
Let's get into that.
Right? So spontaneous arousal is where, like, which I think is what we assume is supposed to be happening most of the time. Many people will say like sex is supposed to come easily. It actually doesn't. But spontaneous is, okay, I am thinking about something. I'm thinking about an erotic thought, and suddenly I'm really interested. I want to have sex. I'm ready to go. And that's great. That's wonderful. There are some people where that's just not how it shows up for them, right? And it's often very responsive. Like, and again, I'm not saying this is how it works for everyone. This is just, I'm generalizing a little bit, but what I often see is particularly women will come in that used to have spontaneous arousal, where they could think about their partner. They could watch, watch something and feel like, ooh, that's exciting, or read a book or something. And then they've lost it. But what's often happening is they've got so much on their plate, right? Not to say that men don't, but they have a lot on their plate. And so, yeah, the last thing that they want to think about when they have to get all the gear packed up in the car for the soccer game, they have to make sure the dishes are done, they have to finish up some work.
Just put a lot of stress on themselves.
Yes, yeah. And so in that situation, it's not going, oh, you can never do those things. To me, that's so unrealistic. Maybe it's because I'm a mom. I'm like, yeah, right. Like, I can't just be like, okay, I'm going to relax right now. It's more recognizing that, oh, maybe in this time, this season of my life, it's going to be more responsive. So I need to sort of prime myself and not feel shame about that. It's not that you're not attracted to your partner. It's not that you don't necessarily want to. It's going to take a different approach. It's reminding yourself that this is, if that's how it shows up for them, that this is pleasurable, that this is a way of connecting with your partner.
Yeah, probably just reminding them of that thought of, yes, this is good for you. It's going to make you feel good. It's going to fix a lot of things.
Yeah.
Just doing it.
Yeah.
And oftentimes too, I think just reminding somebody of the basics
Yes.
helps them remember, like, yes, the basics work.
Yes, she's wonderful, by the way. If people seek it out, her name is Dr. Nagoski. She's amazing. She has several books out. And one thing that she shared, I want to say in one of her TED Talks, she talked about that she is world-renowned sex specialist, and she has to even remind herself that, oh, that's right, I enjoy this, I like this. So it's sort of allowing for this shift that happens. I also use a lot of they're not quite dad jokes, but all these little stories, right? Where more people that are prone to anxiety too, and not just clinical anxiety, but even just overwhelm. If you think about it, two zebras running from a lion, they're not going to stop and have sex. They will die.
Yeah.
And so I use that example to say, if you have a lot going on, you're overwhelmed, you're thinking about a lot, you're stressed, the last thing you're going to do is just settle down to go have sex. So instead, it's looking at that and going, where can we remove stressors? What type of support do you need? Because I think it can be really, really concerning for people if they've experienced healthy sex in their life and then lost it. It can be really concerning for men and women.
Yeah. So how often does hormones play a part in your sexual arousalness? And while you've been in your field of practice, have you seen that men are usually more erotically charged than the woman is?
I do see that is often the case, right? And we know, I'm definitely not an endocrinologist, but testosterone has a huge role for men and women, by the way, right? So for many women, especially those of us, in perimenopause, those of us that are moving towards menopause, right? So definitely not my specialty, but oftentimes there does need to be testing and a level of testosterone there if they're concerned about a loss of libido, right? But I actually work with a lot of individual men. I work with couples. A lot of my work is with individual men as well, and it even affects them, right? So they need a certain level of testosterone for their physical health. But yes, that is often what I'll see, is that there's this shift that starts to happen for all of us. None of us are getting around it. It'll just happen at different times and intensities for people. But yes, definitely acknowledging the role of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and sexuality.
So important.
Super important. Yeah.
So I've been married for 12 years, and our engagement wasn't always great in the beginning, and I found out it was because my testosterone was at a -12.
Oh my goodness.
It did not even exist.
Yeah.
So I went to the doctor, got my full hormone panel done, and ended up getting it fixed. And now, I'm happy to say he's a much happier man. I'm happier because we are happier.
Good.
But it made such a difference in not only in that department of our life, but also my weight loss too.
Okay.
And so you know, I can speak for myself and maybe some other women, but I
Yeah.
think women, for me, I will speak for myself.
Yeah.
Depending on how I feel about myself in that morning, will actually depend on how I feel during that time when,
Oh,
when
absolutely.
it's time to do that deed.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm jumping around a little bit too, but that is one of the factors that I will share with people about, and a lot of this comes from lots of different people's work, but um, Peggy Kleinplatz, if I'm saying her name correctly, she talks about these common factors that show up with people that are reporting that they're having, she uses the word magnificent sex, right? And it's not something that can be forced. That's the difficult part of this, but it is feeling really comfortable in your body, whatever your body looks like. It's really difficult for a lot of us. Like billions of dollars are made on teaching us not to like our bodies. And so,
Crazy.
so I am in no way pretending it's that simple. It's not, but it's for many of the couples reporting that they're having these happy and healthy experiences. It is knowing that, yep, something's going to jiggle. I'm going to have some cellulite there. Sex can be extremely sensory. There can be sounds. There can be there can be a lot of
But
different
that's
things.
all normal.
It is. It is.
It
And
is
so,
very natural.
yes. And then another one, again, within everyone's personality, I never want people to be who they're not, but playfulness. Like, so though it can go a long way. Also, side note, and this is something that I am so grateful for my work for many different reasons, but one of them, to be completely honest with you, is I wish I could say that I could just believe my partners, but as a human being myself and being raised in a society where I've internalized a lot of these myths. The most healing thing for me and powerful thing has been listening to people's stories, right, for a living, and listening to men. And I am telling you right now, every time I work with men individually, and I mean, they could be lying to me. They have no reason to. They're coming to me for help and support. I love my wife's body. I think she's beautiful. I think she's amazing. I just want to see it. And whereas, as women, many of us are like, I'm embarrassed about this.
I so
you know?
know what you're talking about.
Yes,
I
and
know.
I don't know if there's any way that I could have really internalized that message for myself if it wasn't for listening,
Just really listening to
over and
them.
over and over. And partners had said that exact same thing. It's just, it was this other source of like, okay, maybe it is, this other, I'm not saying there aren't some men that, are just objectifying, but in committed, really loving relationships, I just haven't seen it.
So the formula to having magnificent sex is loving your body and sharing your
Yes.
body with your
Yes.
partner.
And the vulnerability, because it is an extremely vulnerable thing to show our body, to be comfortable in our body. But again, I say that knowing it's not that easy for a lot of us. There's a lot, going against that. The playfulness as well. The other thing that I know I'm going to sound a little incongruent here because I'm really passionate about talking about the orgasm gap and why that exists.
And we should talk about that.
Yes. That said, really great healthy sex also should not be goal oriented. Right? For many of us, we are raised to believe, and understandably so, like orgasm feels good. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. So I'm not trying to say that it can't be a byproduct, but oftentimes for men and women that I'm working with, they don't realize, but this focus on orgasm as the ultimate, like that is what's supposed to happen, can backfire. And so what I often, again, with Sensate, this mindfulness experience is going, what feels good? And oftentimes that then will lead to orgasm, but not always. Not always.
Okay.
And so if you can be more present in the moment and just notice what feels good to you, have this experience with your partner, that actually will often lead to really happy, healthy, connective experiences. And it takes the pressure off the body.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of different things, whether it be vaginismus, which is basically where there's again, not a doctor here, but the vaginal muscles are extremely tight, so sex can be really painful. And that comes from a lot of different reasons. I work with a lot of, not the term I would love to use because it's oversimplifying it, but whether it be erectile dysfunction due to performance anxiety or their fear that they have premature ejaculation, it is rarely premature ejaculation. We've been taught that men are supposed to last for just ridiculous amounts of time, so half the time.
But there's no set rule on how long
There's
it
no
should
set
be.
rule. You're exactly right. And so when people are focused more on, do I enjoy this? Do I like this? Is this feel good? A lot of the pressure is then taken off of how your body's supposed to respond or perform.
So let me ask you a question. So oftentimes people are not having magnificent sex because they're worried of judgment from the other person.
Absolutely. Or it can even be not just judgment, it can be I'm so focused on my partner's experience, which is technically good. It's way better than not being, aware of it at all. But they're so focused on, does this feel good? Do they like this? Am I pleasing them? Are they going to be okay? That they then are not at all focused on their own experience. And so that is what can lead to some concerns, issues, or avoidance.
So what are some of the things that men are focused on when they're having sex with their wife or their partner? And then what are some things that women are focused on when they're having intercourse with their partners? Because I know that there's different expectations that we feel like we have to meet.
Yeah, and this isn't always the case, but just from my clinical population and who I work with, what I've noticed is, and don't get me wrong, I think both genders are focused on all of these things, right? But I will say what I often work with is when a couple isn't having sex as often as they both would like for whichever reason, one of them more concerned about it than the other usually, is men will often say they just want to feel wanted. So, and then we get into conversations about who's initiating that, that'll take me on lots of different conversations, but that is, I think, a big concern for many of the men that I work with.
Is it often that a man will initiate or the woman?
It's often, at least in my clinical population, that men are, wanting to, they'll ask, and it's usually not intentional, but right, it's like their partner will say like, I'm really busy, or like, we got to get the kids ready for bed, or I'm just exhausted. And understandably so, they perceive that as rejection. I don't think that's the intention.
Yeah.
But I talk a lot about that there's intention and impact. We can have the best of intentions and there's still an impact there. And so, but I also will say that many of the women that I work with too, that's what can get into their heads is, does my partner want me? But what's interesting is what I often see, at least in my clinical population, is they don't just want to feel wanted for their body. Right? Yes. Yeah. So they'll often say, again, sorry, this is crude, but he would have sex with a hole in the wall. Like, it's not me. It's just this. And that would sound great, right? Of like, oh, my partner really wants me, but not if they're questioning whether they want them for who they are, how they're showing up as a partner. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
So men have very different expectations and wants than what women do.
I think so. Or it can even be does it represent connection? Because even though I'm a sex therapist, I'm really big on what does sex mean? We often, and I can get into a lot of different conversations we probably don't have time for, but we also assume that sex means vaginal penetration with a penis. That's usually often what we're saying. When we say sex, that's what we're meaning.
That's actually what I think.
Yeah, sex is a whole lot of different things. And so if that is the determinant, it's going to be difficult because even if it doesn't get to that point, does it represent connection for the couple? Is this just like, quote, scratching an itch? I really liked, that's one of the first questions I ask is like, what does this mean? I can tell you what it means to a lot of different people. I want to know what it means to this individual person.
So what happens if one partner continues initiating and keeps getting rejected or shut down by the other partner? What happens to that relationship that you've seen?
It can that's actually one of the most difficult things to see because again, the intention is not bad on anyone's part, but it really can spiral really easily and just lead to a complete avoidance and shutdown. And so, so if this one person is often trying to initiate, hey, let's do this. Okay, yeah. You know what? I'm not feeling good. All of that is understandable. That's not a bad thing, but they will feel that instead of it being, hey, let's communicate about time of day. Let's communicate about how do we show up for each other and help each other so the day is not as stressful, right? But instead what happens is because sex represents all of those things, it's us, it's who we are as a person, it's our bodies, it's the relationship status, then it will be they don't want me, right?
And then they go and find it from somebody else. They have a need, a natural
Yes.
human need that needs to be met. Which is not being met by their partner, and that's where you start to see the affairs happen.
I do, yeah. But I will always say, too, it's definitely not an excuse. It's definitely not an excuse. But I will say it's actually the breakdown in communication that's happening. Because oftentimes that's what's underneath. It's, okay, but we're not talking about it. You will just randomly, like, ooh, here's a common one, right? You'll come up behind me while I'm washing the dishes, and that ticks me off. Like, I don't like that. But it's not being communicated what is happening or what it is. And so it looks on the outside that it's just okay, there was this bid for connection. That was then, now's not a good time. But this person takes it as they don't want me anymore. This other person takes it as they're not respectful of the fact I have so much going on. But they're also not talking to me throughout the day. They're not asking me about my inner world or my life, but then they suddenly just want me to just be so excited to have sex with them.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing to talk about too, is whether, and again, I'm totally generalizing here. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but often arousal and a refractory period, that's basically just means how many orgasms you can have, how much time do you need in between. All of this is different based on biology. And what can often happen is the perception of that, right? And the running joke too is, if someone can figure out how to get it a very targeted pill like Viagra for women, billions will be made, and they can't do it. They got a new nasal spray that got kind of close.
Okay.
They can't do it because it is so complicated for many women. It's not the same as, okay, you feed a thought, you have arousal, let's go. It's very much based on safety for men too. I'm generalizing here, but for many women, it's based on emotional safety. It's based on the level of connection, the comfort that can be there. Do they respect this person? And so that is going to be hard. If those things aren't happening in the couple relationship as well, there's nothing I can really help with. I can't just tell someone, most of my couples know how to have sex. Every once in a while I'm providing some psychoeducation, but that's rarely the issue. Yeah. It's not the mechanics of it often. It's, what does this feel like and what does it mean?
How often have you seen a relationship that is having the magnificent sex that we're talking about and they're in a bad relationship?
I don't see it.
Okay.
I don't see it. Now, there can be this, what I would call a very toxic pattern, where there'll be, and I think we hear this, or this sort of, this idea that like, oh, you have this passionate relationship because you're fighting one moment and then you're having sex again. That's still not healthy. So like it can look that way.
That's called the makeup sex, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's always unhealthy, but if there's just a consistent pattern that is the only way of resolving issues, I have concerns.
Yes, absolutely.
Because here's the thing, all relationships develop over time and change. You're not the person that you were when you first met your partner most of the time, especially in long-term relationships.
Yeah.
And so the sexual relationship, the amount of emotional connection and safety is going to also need to adjust and change with that relationship. So personally, and that is one of the findings of the Magnificent Sex Study, is the connection is actually vital.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean, so controversial take here, it doesn't necessarily mean for those that are within their values and beliefs, they're okay with having sex outside of a committed relationship. They also can have magnificent sex. But what I mean is, you do need to have a caring, safe relationship with this person, is what we usually find.
So, I mean, that is the formula to having
absolutely.
magnificent sex, and then having a great connection with your partner.
Yes, because I'm not saying that people can't have one-night stands and have a great time, but I mean long-term healthy sexual relationship, a requirement, in my opinion, is that that safety, the vulnerability, and the ability to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. So I want to go back to the topic of women and the lack of arousal, because you're right. There's a ton of things that we actually have to do to get ourselves into that position to be able to do it. Whereas my husband's like ready to go all the time, and I'm like, I wish I could.
Yeah.
But I can't even tell. I can't even tell you why I can't get aroused immediately.
Right.
So, but maybe, what are some exercises and thought practices you give your female clients on how to help themselves get a little more aroused to meet their partner's needs?
Okay, so I'm going to preface with, some of this is not going to fit within certain people's belief systems or views, right? So that goes back to, I will ask people, I don't have the right answer. I shared this in the beginning. I should probably share this now too, right? I work with people where, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but I just mean that oftentimes, maybe because of their like family culture or especially their faith, that there are many tenets around sexuality and sex. And then I work with people who are on the other side of the spectrum where they are opening their relationship, ethical non-monogamy. They want to introduce kink and lifestyle things in a relationship. Not my place. And my job is absolutely never to bring, there's no trajectory where, okay, you're going to need to get to this place, right? It's no, I want to know what your values are, your genuine values are. Let's work within those, because if I'm telling someone...
You're trying to stay away from the goals.
Yeah, because if I tell someone to do something that goes absolutely outside of their value system, I'm causing harm.
You can disposition them.
Yeah, so for example, so if it is acceptable, it's okay within the couple, it's okay for that person, oftentimes it will be individual sensate. And what that involves is it's very, so for example, it would be getting as nude as they feel comfortable. Privacy too. Let me start with that. Privacy, getting as nude as they feel comfortable, ideally completely nude, and they will be with no music, no candles, and they will touch all over their body, at first avoiding genitals, breasts or genitals. They will touch all over their body and noticing temperature, texture, pressure.
Oh.
And what this does is, right, so you're touching your body and you're noticing, oh, that's weird, I got a hairy mole right there, and then you just keep on trucking, and then you notice, oh, wow, like this part of my leg is a lot cooler than this part.
So rediscovering your body.
Yes, and it is mindfulness. It's going back and noticing sensation. Then there's different stages and noticing what thoughts come up, right? And so if it is this thought of like, oh, I hate how my stomach looks, right? Okay, it's okay to have that thought. We don't judge it. Bring yourself right back to temperature, texture, pressure. Mm-hmm. Temperature, texture, pressure. Then the next stage up is involving touching breasts or genitals. But again, you're not stimulating yourself. It is just like you would touch your elbow. Just noticing temperature, texture, and pressure. And what it does is it can take away that pressure that you need to be performing, that you need to orgasm, and it's just, how do you feel inside your body?
How do you feel
What sensations
right now?
do you notice?
Mm-hmm.
So that you can not only know that for yourself, but you can know that to share with and communicate with your partner. And stay within the moment. Many of us get very distracted. And so that can actually be what's happening, is a distracting thought, whether it be something like, oh, I forgot to get pirate's booty for, the kids' lunches, or whether it's, I don't know if they find me attractive. Like, I don't like how this looks. All of that is going to take you away from your internal experience. The other one that, again, this is not for everyone. If it's within the values of that person and it doesn't violate the couple agreement, I will often talk about, okay, do you masturbate? Is that something that's comfortable? But again, that one is not for everyone. But what that does is, I believe that you can't share yourself or know how to talk to your partner if you don't know your own body.
So why is masturbating so uncomfortable for people to talk about?
I think, well, for some, it's because it really does violate, there are some belief systems where it's not appropriate. Now, again, this gets really technical. This can get into how people are interpreting their religion or their faith. So I will even tell them, I'm really big on like, look, that is not my place. Go talk to your bishop, go talk to your pastor. I'm not always comfortable, understandably so. But I think it's because a lot of the myths, this is just my belief, is I think it's this myth that it can compete with the couple sexual relationship.
Do you find that often with women? They get upset with their partners?
Absolutely.
If their other partner does that, and then
Yes.
they feel like it was taken from them.
Or I'm not enough. And now that gets into a very sticky territory of pornography. That is often what's actually happening. It's not their partner enjoying their own body. It's, what are you using to access that, or what are, but I think, let's say even for many of the women that I work with, we are raised that with all of these myths, our bodies are dirty, our bodies are supposed to be explored by our partner, right? Mm-hmm. Bridle thy passions and then go to, it's, and I don't think anyone's intending that, but we definitely get messages that that's bad. You are not supposed to, you are supposed to wait until partnered sex.
What are we've mentioned myths a couple times.
Yeah.
What are the most common myths about sex and connection and arousal that you have to help debunk with people?
Oh, goodness, there are so many. And a lot of these are based on gender and how we're raised, and they're getting better. I'm so excited that they're getting better. But like, for example, many of us are taught, and by the way, this applies to both But the one is that sex is supposed to be easy. That if it's not just naturally happening and it's not spontaneous, that there's something wrong with the connection, or you're not compatible, or you're not sexually compatible. That's probably the biggest that I debunk. The other one is that if a man doesn't have an erection because the wind blew, like that, it's because their partner's not attractive. It's because he's cheating. It's because he's watching porn. It's because that's a lot of it. The other one, again, is that for women, I have to share and talk a lot about, sorry, touchy subject here, talk a lot about how lubrication has nothing to do with whether you're attracted to your partner or whether your body is working.
I didn't know that.
I am the queen of like lube, 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 lube. Like, who cares? But I don't mean to be dismissive, but many of us are taught because of media, songs, culture, that if that's not happening, that there's something wrong.
Funny, because I've always thought that.
Yeah.
That if I need it, it's that I'm not there.
Oh, well, okay. So technically speaking, though, it can be a sign that you need more either foreplay or you do need more, but it's not always that.
Could it be a sign of dehydration?
So I would imagine so, but oftentimes, like for example, it can be hormonal. So it's often, that's why a common thing that I talk to women that are going into perimenopause or menopause is you are going to not be as lubricated. That is just, right? Or even, not even just in that stage of life, if you're breastfeeding, right?
Okay.
So there are a lot of times where I never want to skip that preparedness or allowing your body to warm up and get ready. It takes much longer for women. I can get you stats for the exact amount of time, but it does take longer just because we're talking blood flow, right? Like the body needs a certain level of blood flow. That is what an erection is, by the way, it is, blood flow, but it's the same thing for women as well. And so I appreciate you actually saying that, because I'm definitely not just like, you don't need to do anything, just grab some lube and you're ready to go. Absolutely not. But it's more so if you do feel that you're aroused, you're comfortable, and you're just not getting as lubricated, it does not in any way mean anything other than you just need some extra support. Scaffolding. I tell people all the time, scaffolding just helps keep things in place so that you can, do what you need to do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so far, this is both an entertaining and very educational conversation because, it's just people don't want to talk about it, but then when you do, it gets you can go so deep into it because it's a beautiful natural thing. I mean, that's how children are made.
Absolutely.
That's how life goes on. Okay, so one of the things that you are a specialist in is, I read it on your bio, was the orgasm gap. And there's a big difference depending on gender differences.
Yeah, and some of that can come from just societal views. Again, just allowing, could get into a lot of things there of just like how women are allowed to show up, if we're allowed to be sexual, what that means, what it's misconstrued to be. But a lot of this is, some people do know this, but many people don't. So I usually share with couples is that now there's some variation in the research, but it can be as low as 15, but even up to 20% of women will not orgasm from vaginal penetration alone.
Oh, wow. So what else is required?
Clitoral stimulation, right? And so many people are just already doing that, and that's wonderful. But I think it's important for couples to know that because
or else the partner feels like they're doing a bad job.
I'm not enough. Yeah, what's happening? And then women are like, this just isn't for me. I'm not a sexual person. When really it's like, this is, and then we can even get on the stats of like, they've done measurement on like the size difference between where the clitoris and the vaginal opening is. Like there's actually biology to this, right? This isn't, it. So I think that's important to know too, is if you, understanding arousal, understanding that fact can take away a lot of the fear around we need to add something, not necessarily outside factors, but there is going to need to be some support in different ways, and it's normal.
So like toys.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Or even just refocusing on things like oral sex or just rhythm, cadence, that it's not for lack of anyone doing anything wrong. It is just, it just is.
It just is.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm learning so much today, even just about, and it's funny too, I've birthed a son, been married for 12 years, and I didn't even know half these things that we're talking about today.
No, we're not taught it. And again, that's why I was so passionate about like, wait a second, And there's a lot of different reasons for that, but I think it's an important part of who we are. And by the way, even if it's something that you don't want, just owning that as well, like, and knowing that that's okay. But either way, it's there. The other thing I'm very passionate about and is always fun to talk about too is that in terms of body, that the clitoris is the only part of the body on men or women that the sole purpose is pleasure. Everything else, right? For men, every other part of the body, there is technically like another mechanism, or it does something else. The clitoris is the only one where it's for sexual pleasure and nerve endings. And so that's why I tell a lot of, depending on what they've learned, if they're comfortable with it, I'll tell women like, you are made to be a sexual being, literally.
Yeah, that's what we were made for.
Yes. And so I think a lot of it just comes from societal views that, by the way, I don't think any of us mean to force these things on other people. It's just what we're taught, and, having to undo those things. And then, oh gosh, that would be the other thing too, is I don't mean this like, I don't mean to roll my eyes to be like flippant. It's more this, it upsets me at how stressful and how much pain it causes, but also, men feeling stressed about penis size or perception of penis
Society
size,
has definitely
or
done
myths
that.
around that.
Yeah.
Ooh, it grinds my gears. Because it causes a lot of shame and pain and disappointment and fear. And so I'm also very passionate about that, is just, that accepting your body. And that is another one. Oh, I guess that probably, I should have mentioned that before, in terms of hearing, men talk about that they, like, majority of the time, they love their partner's body. Same thing. I do not hear women speaking about like, oh my goodness, like, I don't like his size, or I don't like this. I think that's more men perpetuating this. Or, well, not just men, sorry, society in general, for sure.
Definitely
But
a
when
society condition.
Absolutely. But when you're talking about people in a loving relationship, it's myths.
So when they're having that magnificent sex like you were talking about, and they're really connecting with their partner, I think that's the last thing they're worried about.
Yes.
They're so busy connecting with their partner on a spiritual flesh level.
Yeah.
They don't care about the thing that really they only know about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not always necessary. As I talked about, if many women aren't orgasming from penetration alone anyway, and I don't mean to be dismissive about men's bodies, but it's also like, it may not matter. At the end of the day, right? It's like, are you present with this person in front of you? Do you care about them? Do you feel safe with them emotionally, physically? That's the key.
So is that why somebody wouldn't have sexual connection with somebody? Is they don't feel safe, they don't feel appreciated and seen and loved in front of that person?
Absolutely. That to me, and just feeling wanted. Like, and I don't mean that just like this carnal, like sexually, but like, is this person choosing me?
Wow. It just comes down to very basic human needs.
Yeah, I often use that phrase that it's often very simple, but not easy. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that this is something that you definitely practice in your field of work, but what about somebody who has sexual trauma that they have not resolved, and their partner is trying to work with them on it, but they just can't get past it? Yeah, and a lot of the work that I do, that not for today's conversation, is as a psychotherapist, I specialize in trauma, lots of different types, and a majority of the work that I do in trauma, because I'm also a sex therapist, is working through sexual trauma. And so for some people, but sadly, it's extremely common. So
that is sad.
Yeah, and it absolutely affects how you show up. The definition I use of trauma is it's something that impacted how you see yourself in the world, right? Now, in terms of, there are sex therapists that will say that, especially like sexual violence, is a trauma of the soul. Because, and I'm not trying to be dismissive of other types of trauma, but it goes to such deep levels of who you are, your level of safety. It can confuse body functioning. Sorry, I'm getting excited. But like, not excited about the trauma, but I realize I'm like passionate about it. There's what's called sexual non-concordance. Don't need to know that word. There won't be a test. But what it means is your mind can feel one way and your body can respond in a different way. And so, for example, for some of the men that I work with that have experienced sexual trauma, which I would argue it's difficult for anyone to talk about, but especially men.
Yeah.
Right?
Because they were trained to not talk about their
and you're
problems.
supposed to like any encounter that comes at you. You know, like you're supposed to like, so if there's an 18-year-old boy who then a woman takes advantage of him, he's supposed to think that's cool. You know, like society's supposed to be like, you're the man. That is not
We see it
what
all
that is.
we see it all over social media
Yes.
comments.
Yes.
You know, if a woman, which is, it's still, in my opinion, like, I think 18 though, you're still a child. What do you know at 18? I still think if there's a 30-year-old woman having intercourse with an 18-year-old, you're a pedophile.
Absolutely.
I
Well, yeah.
personally think that.
And there can be this grooming, and so I talk to a lot of men about that, but what can be confusing, and for women as well, is if their body is responding, it can be seen as, well, then you liked it. Absolutely not. Your body responds to friction. Your body can respond to a situation. That does not mean that you wanted it and it was okay.
Do you ever see people tricking themselves into thinking that they want it, but really deep down they just don't?
Absolutely. And especially if you're getting into a dynamic where, and I'm never going to step on the belief itself or where it comes from, but especially if they believe that, oh, it's my job to have sex with my partner. Now, we can view that it's an important part of the relationship and we want to prioritize it, but I often see where it'll be like, oh, well, I had sex with him because if I don't, he throws fits.
Okay, so if somebody has to coerce themselves because they're setting a goal, they feel like it's an obligation, what is the long-term effect of that on that relationship?
It's going to lead to avoidance of sex or the deterioration of the relationship, because that also shows that there's not a level of emotional safety
And
or
also
communication.
resentment, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so that's where I'll have some partners come in and they're like, she's punishing me. You know, she's using it because she knows I want it. And it's like, okay, if that's true, we'll call that out. But often what is happening is there's resentment because needs aren't being met on both sides, but one is being expected.
And the other one is just not.
And all the others are being dismissed.
Cannot give it. Okay, wow.
So yeah. So like I've seen people where they can be extremely physically attracted to their partner and yet they are completely repulsed by their behavior or how they're treating them, how they're treating their children.
Yeah.
So, you know, at the end of the day, but that person will think like, I don't know, I just don't think she's into me. And I'm like, we got a lot of work to do.
It relates back
and
to the
vice versa, by
connection.
the way. There's a crude term here, but Linda sort of taught me that in terms of trying to diagnose or work through, because there's a lot of complicated factors. But when I'm working with someone who has erectile dysfunction, we talk about health, because again, double checking for blood pressure, heart issues, right? So we start first where we can to get the most traction. But there's a saying that sometimes one head is telling you what the other head refuses to believe.
I've never heard of that.
Yes. So, for example, you know, again, there's that horrible myth that men are supposed to just be ready to go all the time. Not the case. But sometimes...
Yes, how dare them be human?
I know.
How dare them?
But sometimes what's happening actually is they don't feel emotionally safe either. But men are definitely not given the safety in society to talk about that.
No, they're not.
So if they're, let's just say, if their partner is extremely critical or being cold, they don't feel comfortable or safe with that person. And so that's when we can see things like more psychological erectile dysfunction, because they're not comfortable or safe.
Psychological, wow.
Yeah, sometimes it is physiological, but for men and women, but then there are these things where...
I believe it, because everything starts in the mind. It all starts with your thoughts. You have if you have a continuous thought, it becomes a story, and that story becomes a belief.
Well put. Yes.
Yeah, so I absolutely believe that. Well, I think I've learned so much today.
Good.
I feel like I got like sex ed 202.
Yes.
The things that were just never really shared.
Yeah.
Especially in adulthood, which I think
Yes.
if I would have known all this 10 years ago, I would have had a healthier marriage.
Absolutely.
You know, much sooner, because our marriage and relationship really did revolve around that, and I just didn't know how to love myself.
Yes.
I didn't know how to accept myself and my flaws, and
Yes.
you know what, to your point, my husband just wanted to see me. That's it.
Yes, and connect. Absolutely.
And connect. And then, of course, if I would just let it go and then just been with him, things would have been much different.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, it took me 10 years too long to get it figured out.
You're not the only one. I joke all the time that if it were that simple, if it were a logic thing, therapy wouldn't exist. So, but I think a lot of people don't even know what sex therapy is, or even relationship therapy, what it is. I think they think people are going to come in and tell them what to do. And it's quite, for me, it's absolutely not that. I want to know what you need. How do I help you get there based on what's important for you? And it's just awkward. I joke right away. I use a lot of humor in
To break down that wall.
absolutely in my work. And so yeah, it's like, yeah, let me go talk to a stranger about our sex lives, one of the most vulnerable and intimate things. It's weird. And so I acknowledged for people that like this is going to be odd. I talk about it all day long, never intentionally going to make you uncomfortable, but then people are surprised by how just like
But
like
I
how
can
much
I
nicer
can
it
see
is.
why you are so successful in your field of work because you make it light, you make it fun, you make it easy to talk about. When you put
Well,
that
thank you.
barrier up, like you're supposed to be shameful to talk about it, you don't want to talk about it.
No,
But you tell them like this is a natural thing and you're
absolutely.
not the only one.
Absolutely. Nope. And I wish so many people could have the experience that I have of hearing everyone's story all together, because you would realize that you're not alone. And there's so many people. It's scary. It's
Yeah.
scary to talk about.
It's funny because at soccer practice, when I take my son to soccer practice, me
Yeah.
and the other moms will
Yeah.
openly talk about these things.
Oh,
And then
absolutely.
you'll see the other moms join, like, I'm not the only one. Oh my God. You do it how many times a week? Like, they're able to kind of measure their
Yes.
success of their relationship. And they say, well, how could I do more of that? I want
Yes.
more of that. But I think, according to my husband, men don't talk about that.
You know, and that's another of the myths too. We're like, oh, the locker room talk, and then sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I think I talk about it in a way that is probably more intense. Like I know for my current partner, we kind of joke about that because I was like, yeah, and then I was talking to my friends, and wanting to make sure I'm speaking about things in like a consensual and like keeping things private that need to be, and that was kind of his joke because he's like, we don't talk about that, and I was like, oh, interesting. I do.
Yeah, my husband's like, we don't talk about that. You women don't talk about that. Like, inappropriate. I'm like, but that's what women do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's when we go to brunch, that's what we're talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's our
because it's
form of
important.
therapy. That's
And
our
it's
form of
important to
therapy.
us. Absolutely.
It
And
is,
so,
it is,
yeah.
yeah.
And that's another myth, right? Is that women were just not talking about it. And then men are just like having these like really inappropriate or obnoxious conversations. And I'm like,
Yeah,
nope.
they're a little more vulgar about things. We're a little more sensitive about it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Brittany, you've just like blown my mind.
Aw.
And it's just been an honor to talk with you. But I'm going to ask you 3 questions.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. I mean, an absolute honor. I can't wait to watch this whole thing back. So you're an absolute expert in your field of work, and I don't know a lot of certified sex therapists that actually have your credentials. So I'm
Yeah.
interested to know, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I actually really, really hope to be just focusing on sex therapy. I enjoy trauma work. I work with a lot of different things, but I'm so excited about it. And I am a big believer. And what I've been trained and taught too is that you will excel where it feels exciting and easy, that's a complicated feeling for many of us in business,
what's
right?
easy for
Yeah.
you.
Because it's like, wait, if it's easy, am I working hard enough? No, that's where your flow is. That's where you can be helpful. And so what I would love on this, what we just talked about in this idea that people need to hear each other, I want to be doing retreats. I want to be helping couples together because I think it's powerful. And wanting to be in a perfect world, if I'm just dreaming really, really big, it would be to have all of those facets address the trauma, right? I do a lot of EMDR and hypnotherapy. Having the trauma, and not just trauma sexually, but trauma within relationships. If there's been infidelity, if there's been certain betrayals, or things there, and then also talking about sensate, talking about because I also think that in terms of the entire relationship, sex included, of course, I think many of us know when we feel that there's something off or we feel that there's a void, but many of us are not modeled what's supposed to actually be there.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, I don't like this. What am I supposed to be doing? What are other people doing? When I see people in healthy relationships, are they really healthy, or are they playing it up in public, or is this just what they're showing on Instagram? That's what I would really, really want to be doing.
I think you should move that plan up because that's something the world needs.
Yeah.
Healing to something that people don't want to talk about.
Absolutely.
And so many people want to just uncover that, heal themselves, and move forward.
I agree.
Especially sexual trauma.
I agree. Well, I appreciate your support of my vision.
Second question.
Sure.
Knowing what you know today, what would you go back and tell your 20-year-old self?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I've had to do so much. I got married at 19, so my first marriage was at 19. And I wish that I could have Yeah. Oh, goodness. What a good question. I wish I would have told myself to slow down. I'm so grateful that I've been able to accomplish what I have, but I was definitely getting rewarded for things and I was exhausted. And I just, it would be to slow down and be more present. I wanted to do all the things, grateful that I have, but at the expense of knowing myself.
Yeah. Do you feel like you lost yourself in the process?
Absolutely. I think and there's a whole lot of reasons why, but yeah, I think I thought that if I just fit the narrative that I was taught, you get married, you have the babies, you go to school, you have the white picket fence, and luckily being in Las Vegas at that time, I was able to get to a lot of those things, but I wasn't slowing down enough to really check in with myself to see, am I stressed out? And
you didn't listen to your own needs.
Yeah, and because I wasn't doing like stereotypically bad things, it was reinforced, right? My joke for people is when I say like, yeah, I went to graduate school with 202. Like I went to my group interviews, making sure I could pump in between because I had a 10-day-old baby. And people are like, that's so amazing, that's powerful. And I'm like, no, don't reinforce that behavior because I was so not present with myself and so not aware that you can do it differently. You can do it in a way where your needs are important and
If we could all only go back
goodness.
and tell our 20-year-old self after we have the 30 years of wisdom,
Yes. And start therapy. Oh my goodness. Like I've had great therapists. I wish I had started even sooner. So
I have a life coach who's basically like a therapist, and she's a mirror.
Absolutely.
And an echo, and I think we all need that to
Absolutely.
continue meeting our next best version of ourselves.
Agreed.
My last question, what does success look like to you?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Success, I think, is life balance. At 20, I would have had a very different answer. It would have been how much resources can I, have and access, because it represents freedom. It represents space. For me, is my life balanced? Am I able to just, take a deep breath and enjoy the view? Are my kids happy and healthy? At the end of the day, that to me is, am I able to be present with the people, with myself first, and with the people I love and care about that are around me?
That's a very good definition of success. I like it. I resonate with it. Well, Brittany, you've just been a wealth of knowledge and just shared so much great information that would really intentionally improve someone's life in the sex arena,
Of course.
which everybody wants it, and it's natural.
Yes, agreed.
So where can people find you if they need a sex therapist?
The best way is going to be my website, so farrowfamilytherapy.com, or email, so Brittany, Brittany @farrowfamilytherapy.com.
Amazing. Well, that's where I found you.
Perfect. It works.
Yes. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, you've just been just a wonderful resource, and I know people are going to use this and help elevate their lives the best way that they can.
You. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for bringing attention to this really, really important, area of life.
It's very important. It's very important. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Until next time, see you in the next episode.